She's a winner.
And welcome to the Intuitive Entrepreneur Show, where you take enlightened entrepreneurs, coaches, and influencers together to discuss cutting-edge topics in the world of relationships, culture, business, and spirituality. And here's your host, Miss Carol Boston.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Crack Your Code, Reframe Your Life. Oh, wait a minute. That's not what was on the intro, was it? Things are changing. Sometimes things just change more slowly than others, right? We get to learn patience and trust in the process that everything happens exactly when it's supposed to, even when we don't like it or when we don't understand it. Look at the beautiful weather behind me. You know I'm your weather girl. Oh, yes. Let me know where you're chiming in from when you join me and what the weather's like where you are. I'm going to go over here and click on the comments so I can see, I love having a dialogue and not a monologue for those of you who follow me. Last week and the week before, we had new people show up. We had some old people show up. And I was just speaking with my wonderful technical assistant and expert. And I said, you notice they showed up at the same time, 20 minutes after we got started. So we were talking about, well, do we possibly change the time of the show to get more people engaged? Because I love to have a dialogue and I like to reach more people. And I used to do Carol's Courage to Confidence show for 3 years, every Monday at 12 noon Eastern. And looking back, there were times when we'd have 15, 20, 25 people engaged in the comments. Talk about keeping me busy, right? Trying to do my thing and teach and train and engage everybody in the comments. We had people who they did business together in the comments. I would say, hey, Jeff, you got to meet John. And they would do that. So I love that. So if you're being a voyeur today, let me know you're here. Don't be a voyeur. Just let me know that you're here. So I'm excited to be here today. It's absolutely beautiful weather in sunny Fort Lauderdale. As a matter of fact, by the weekend, we're going to be back up in the 80s. And I'm actually going to be starting to move this weekend. And I was like, oh, no, man, I'm going to be sweating. But that's okay. A lot of other people are freezing. And now they've got the mudslides in California. And so much to learn from the weather. We have a very interesting topic today out of Ian Levon Johnson Till Today book. And when you join me, let me know if you actually saw the title or read the description. Or perhaps you just said, hey, Carol's live. Let me click on there. Today, we're going to be talking about responsibility, accountability, and the blame game, right? 100% responsibility. That could be challenging in many, many ways. And sometimes we'd just rather, I've done it. I know you have too. Sometimes we just stick our head in the sand, right? We're just like, oh, I just don't want to look at that. And then when it either gets worse or doesn't get resolved, who is there to get mad at? Nobody. We chose. And there's power in choice. I teach my clients often specificity gives you clarity, and clarity gives you power. And so often, especially as women, we give up our power. I was actually working with one of my male clients a couple of hours ago and getting him to know his value, own his power, and advocate for himself. Somebody will come back to him and say, yeah, dude, I just don't have the money. And he'll immediately start backing down. And I'm like, no, you're dang good at what you do. You're worth $200 an hour. You get to advocate for your value. And we started digging underneath that. Some of the same digging I started doing years ago in my own subconscious, right? About the energy and the thoughts that we have around money and what it represents, right? So in listening to him, it was quite fascinating. And I shared that back in 2006. I don't know if I've told you guys this story. Back in 2006, I walked into the bank one day and my little old Chinese lady friend, Chin, was there. She was about, in the South, they say knee-high to a grasshopper, which means she was really short. And she says, there's Carol. She's our next millionaire. And I said, well, I'm not a millionaire. I did my business and I left. And the next day I was at this place called ABC Liquors. I used to collect wine and I had a wine vault in there. So things would be kept at the right temperature. And I was having a dinner party. So I go to ABC and the sommelier there, I called him Uncle Fred and he called me Niece Carol, even though we were not related. He's from Venezuela. We just had a great rapport. So he unlocks the room where all of the wine vaults are. And I'm in there getting a couple of bottles of wine out. And there's another man getting wine out of his vault. And Uncle Fred said, "Come over here. I want you to meet my niece, Carol. She's going to be our next millionaire." What do you think I said? I'm not going to be a millionaire. Now, I didn't even realize, I wasn't even conscious of how quickly that rolled off of my tongue. Fast forward from 2006 to 2016, and I got into a mastermind called the Millionaire Mindset Mastermind. It was run by Kimberly Adams. And we started doing work in this mastermind, and it was like, OMG, right? We uncovered the subconscious files that were running in my brain that I was totally unaware of. And I actually did sabotage becoming a millionaire. What was in the back of my head? My dad's voice. Nobody needs that much money. If you have that much money, you're greedy. You can't be a Christian and have that much money. Oh my gosh, I totally self-sabotaged, right? Look at all the crap we grow up with that we get to undo, right? Hopefully we actually do the work and undo it so we don't pass it on from generation to generation to generation. And yet I started doing that work back in 2016, and now I get to help my clients do some of that same work. What did we say earlier? Everything happens for a reason. Now, we're not always going to know the reasons. But more often than not, we learn them when we look backwards. See, I can look backwards now to 2006 and connect the dots. But when we're in it, we can't see it. Just like I tell you guys all the time, you can't read the label when you're inside the jar. And we're all in a jar, including me. I have my own blind spots. That's why I believe everybody gets to have a good coach. I have a good coach. Actually, I'm working with two right now, right? Different areas of my life. Different areas of my life. Who's your coach? How are you uncovering your blind spots? Are you willing to do the work? Ooh, some people just don't want to see. He began to tell me that he was just having a conversation with a friend the other day, and they were talking about they had finally gotten to a place in life where they were comfortable. Now, I did that in air quotes. He did not, right? They were comfortable. And I said, "May I share a couple of quick stories with you that were shared with me when I was comfortable?" He said, "Yes." I said, "So several years ago, I heard a story by Les Brown." How many of you know who Les Brown is? Put that in the comment. He's an amazing, one of the world's foremost motivational speakers. And his family moved when he was in high school, so he got to walk to a new high school. So he's walking to school for the first day, and he looks over, and there's a porch, a man and a woman, both sitting in their rocking chairs, and a dog lying on the porch, moaning and groaning. He thought, what is wrong with that dog? Day after day, goes to school, boom, dog's moaning. So finally, by the end of the week, he couldn't take it anymore. And he stopped and introduced himself, and he asked the man, he says, "What's up with the dog? It's groaning all the time." Man says, "Dog's in pain." Les Brown says, "Well, why is he in pain?" He said, "Because he's lying on a nail." Les says, "Well, why didn't he get up and move?" He says, "Pain's not bad enough yet." Folks, until the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change, folks will not change. Put that in the comments, right? Folks won't change. Pain's not great enough. Because we learn to what? We learn to tolerate. We get thick skin. We say, "It doesn't bother me." And oftentimes we're completely unaware of what? We get what we tolerate. I remember back in 2007, I had my first life coach when nobody even knew what a life coach was. I never knew I was cutting edge, right? So one day she says to me, "Carol, I want you to write a list of 100 things, 100 that you're tolerating." I'm like, "What?" She said, "Just walk around your house. Think about walking around when you're at work. Look at your car. Look at everything. Write down 100 things that you're tolerating," because we get what we tolerate. You would be amazed at how aware I became of things that I was tolerating. Like the bathroom faucet that dripped, right? The toilet that would just run all by itself. Of course, that was wasting water, right? The wraparound on the bottom of the stairwell that had been completely knocked off by the chest of a big cat that I used to have that was very muscular. Nice stairwell, wooden, right? Wooden floors, cherry. And yet it just sat there piled up. What was I tolerating in my personal life? At that time, I was tolerating inconsistent bedtimes. It was impacting my work. I don't tolerate that anymore. I go to bed like clockwork. Even when other people want me to stay up. My sleep has become sacred, especially as I've gotten older. The other story I shared with him that I'll share with you, that was shared with me, is I had a coach one time a few years ago hold up a triangle just like this. He says, Carol, you see the top of that triangle? That space up there is really small, isn't it? And I said, yes, it is. He said, that's because very few people are willing to do the work to get to the top. That's why they say it's lonely at the top. He said, but look at the bottom of that triangle. It's really wide and fat, isn't it? I said, yes. He said, do you know how many tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people jump in to start a new business? And there they are, they're at the bottom and they jump in. Majority of them fail. But most of them, after the majority of those that failed are gone, they're sitting right in the middle of the triangle. That's the biggest, thickest part. He said, Carol, mediocrity lives in the comfort zone. Ooh. Who here gets up in the morning and says, ooh, I want to be mediocre? We don't say that, nor do we want that in our lives. I got to turn this focus thing off so I quit getting these notifications. There we go. Mediocrity. And we often stay in mediocrity when we what? We blame something outside of ourselves for the challenges or the perceived problems we have in our life. Think about it. Oh, it's the weather. It's the COVID. It's the government. It's my boss. It's the job. It's the price of vegetables, whatever, right? Anytime we blame something outside of ourselves, we just gave up our power. And it happens all the time, every day. What would compel people to constantly give up their power? Oftentimes people don't want the responsibility, the accountability of being 100% responsible. But when we operate at level 4 responsibility in our leadership, we understand that we are 100% responsible for everything, right? Now, the challenge comes when we're sitting in that stance and the person on the other side of us is not. They're sitting in the victim blame role, right? Jeff Purdue Atkins in the house. I have missed you, buddy. He says lack of responsibility. Exactly, right? We want to play the blame game. But the bottom line is we are co-creators with God and the universe in our experience of life. And if we've created something that we don't like, the only way we're going to change it is to own that we created it. Because if we keep blaming something outside of us, we can't change what's out there. We can't change the weather or the COVID or the boss or the job. Can't do it. Can't change our spouse, right? Can't change our parents. They get to be who they are. But we get to step up in our leadership and operate at 100% responsibility. How did that show up for me this week? I get a text from a woman that I dog sit for fairly frequently. And she says, are you available February 2nd? And I looked at my calendar. I'm like, oh, no, I'm moving that weekend. I don't want to go dog sit from 5 p.m. to 11:30 on, this is what I said. I don't want to go dog sit from 5 p.m. to 11:30 on a Sunday night when my first client's at 6 a.m. I just told you guys I go to bed like clockwork, right? So I said, no. She came back. She said, okay, are you available on March 16th? I checked and I said, yes. Now, interestingly enough, what unfolded was her boyfriend texted me. Now, this is in the middle of me watching the football playoffs last Sunday afternoon. I'm having a cocktail. I'm enjoying the football game. I don't want to get into a tit for tat. He said, she said, you're right, I'm wrong kind of conversation over text. So he sends me a text and he says, Karen is really upset. And he said, look above and look at I sent you a picture of the dates that we're going to be going to all these shows on Sunday evenings, the Broadway shows. We're going to have dinner and a show once a month for 6 months. And I looked up there and all I saw was one thumbnail and it said The Grinch. Well, those were the tickets he had given me. I went to the Grinch with Rev Deb. We had a blast, right? I still didn't know what he was talking about. I said, there must be some miscommunication here. I don't have any of these dates blocked off in my calendar. And if I had blocked them off, I would have asked you for a 50% security deposit like I always have in the past. Right? Happy to block those days off. He comes back again and he says, I distinctly recall. So now his need to be right is not going to override my desire to be happy. Right? So he says, I distinctly recall you pulling out your book and writing them all down. Not possible. I didn't carry a book in. When I go to dog sit from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., I'm going to be doing what? I'm going to be having a cocktail, watching TV, and taking care of the dog. I don't bring books. I don't bring a laptop. I don't bring work that late at night. Now, I could have pushed back and said, no, it's not pot. Da, 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 da. I just said, Ray, I'm don't want to do this over text, and I'm entertaining people for the football game. I'll check my calendar and see what I can do, and I'll get back to you tomorrow. Now, I want you to think about that, folks. Who's right and who's wrong? Doesn't matter, does it? I'm operating at level 4 responsibility. I'm 100% responsible. So if there's miscommunication, okay, let's fix it and move on without blame. Here's the challenge, another challenge for most folks. In any ensuing conversation, when the other person brings it up and wants to be right again, they're not willing to set a boundary. Right? How many of you would be willing to say, I'm not available for that conversation? Because that's going to be my response. Because I know this gentleman, he's going to bring it up when I go to dog sit. And I'm going to say, I'm not available for that conversation. I'm not interested in who's right or wrong. Everything's fixed. I'm happy. Let's move forward. Are you willing to do that? Let's see what Iyanla Vanzant's got for us today. Jeff, have you picked back up your Iyanla Vanzant book? Have you been reading? Let me know in the comments. Life will work for me when I realize I am totally, completely, and fully responsible for what goes on in my life. One of the greatest challenges in creating a joyful, peaceful, and abundant life is taking responsibility for what you do and how you do it. As long as you can blame someone else, be angry with someone else, point the finger at someone else or something else, you are not taking responsibility for your life. Sure, things happen. It is absolutely true that there are situations, circumstances, social constructs, and common elements that can and do affect you. It is your responsibility, however, to determine how and how long they affect you. Ooh, that could bring up another great question. What are you choosing to hold on to? It is easy to find reasons not to be responsible. In fact, many of us are not aware of how we do it or that we do it at all. So if you're just now chiming in with me, go back and listen to the replay and you'll see where I was talking about how our subconscious drives our behavior in different areas that we're completely unaware of. Excuse me. Not taking responsibility for your life means blaming, finding causes, excuses, and reasons for what is going on in your life, as if they had nothing to do with you. Not taking responsibility means crying or complaining about the good that is not happening while making very few efforts to determine that it will happen. Not taking responsibility means asking someone to do for you the things you must do for yourself and being angry when they don't do it. How many of us have ever done that? Right? It cannot be said loud enough or enough times, your life is your responsibility. Think of it this way. If you cannot be responsible for your life, how can you expect to be responsible for the good things you want to receive in your life? Until today, you may have held others responsible or blamed external situations and circumstances for the condition of your life. Just for today, be devoted to surveying your life. Identify the areas that are dysfunctional, challenged, or simply not as you would have them to be. Make a list of all the things you can do to create that needed change. Make a plan to execute the things that you have put on the list. Today, I'm devoted to taking full responsibility for everything that is going on in my life. You guys know I'm all about language, right? We create as we speak, speaking from our power, speaking from abundance and ownership. So she keeps talking about taking responsibility. Well, one of the things I learned in that intensive leadership program I was in, hard to believe it was almost 3 years ago. When we look at the 4 levels of responsibility, the first lowest level is what? I'm a victim. Nothing's my fault. Everybody does everything to me. Everything happens to me. I can't change anything. I'm a victim. That's level 1. Not my fault. Level 2. Okay, I'll take responsibility. Now, this happens when someone what? They've been caught or they feel guilty. That's not leadership. It's not tangible. You can't take responsibility. It doesn't sit on a shelf. Still, lack of leadership. But when you get to the top, level 4, and we operate that I am 100% responsible for everything. It's a powerful place to be. It's not an easy place to be all the time. It's not an easy place to stay. But it's a powerful, influential, courageous, loving way of being. And we get to look at who am I being in this situation? I asked myself that last Sunday. Am I going to reply back in this text, be tit for tat? I didn't do that. You did this. No, man, I tell you, years and years ago, I would. I was raised in a family where, by God, you had to be right or you were just no good as a person. Seriously. We felt shamed in that household if we weren't right. I remember decades ago when I was engaged and we went to my parents' house to visit. My older brother was there. My younger brother was there. And so after dinner, they all decided we would play board games. I knew this was going to be a disaster. And it was. One of my brothers got so upset. He was throwing the cards. He was slamming his hand down because he had to win. He had to be right. It disrupted the rest of the evening. What if? What would happen if you gave up the need to be right? Journal on that question. What would happen if I gave up the need to be right? Here's another question. What wouldn't happen in my life if I gave up the need to be right? Great questions. The questions are the answers. I used to quote Joyce Myers when she'd say, you can be pitiful or you can be powerful, but you can't be both. Mm, think about it. I heard someone say earlier today on a Zoom that I was watching, you can make excuses or you can make money, but you can't do both. Whew. Come on. We've all done it. We've all made excuses for where we are. We think we should be further along. We should be somewhere else. And then every time we should ourselves, we make ourselves wrong. And we do it to other people. Come on, folks. You know you do. One of my coaches right now catches me off guard sometimes. Somebody will say something and she'll go, according to who? According to what? Right? Like who made up that rule? And there he is, just like clockwork, 3:26 p.m., Mr. Malcolm A. Smith from Houston, Texas. Malcolm, what one thing can happen so that you can join us at 3 o'clock so I could have the pleasure of your company for the whole 30 minutes? Malcolm, it wasn't you can be peaceful or you can be powerful, but you can't be both. It's you can be pitiful, the total opposite of powerful. So you can be pitiful, playing the I'm victim blame game, or you can be powerful and standing in your 100% ownership of everything that goes on in your leadership. So it's pitiful or powerful. I'm so glad you're here. We've actually recently talked about changing the time of the show so more people who used to show up all the time show up because I love having a dialogue. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Jeff and Malcolm, they used to be regulars on my Courage to Confidence show, and they were regulars on Carol's Craft Cocktail show. My goodness, was that fun, Malcolm, or what? Whew. That was fun. So if you're being a voyeur today, reach out. Let me know you're here. Love to engage in conversation. Love to get your thoughts. As a matter of fact, I listened to an 8-figure going on 9-figure coach the other day. She's been in the business a long time, has 6 companies under her umbrella. She said, you know, one good way to get engagement, be controversial. Take a stand for something and be controversial. She said, but only do it if you're willing to get the flack, because there's always going to be haters, but you'll get engagement. Think about that one. Malcolm said, voice to text took over and I didn't check or proofread before I sent the text. Not a problem. I think it was beneficial because it gave us a chance to get a good point of clarity. So not a problem at all. I still want to know what one thing would have to happen for you to join me at 3 o'clock instead of 3:26. Who else joined us late last week? Do you remember, Aruba? But they're consistently at the same time. I can't remember. Uh-oh. Change. Change is inevitable. Are we willing to adapt? Are we willing to take ownership? Are we willing to say, yep, I did that, without judging ourselves? Just owning that we did it with the best we knew at the time. And what does Maya Angelou tell us? When we learn better, we do better. I am definitely on the path every day of getting better, raising up in my personal development, my emotional intelligence, my intellectual intelligence, my spiritual intelligence. And I'm so happy that we have started the 13-week Bank iOS coaching program. Started it last Thursday, and I learned something new every time. I'm excited. Come back and see me. I'm getting certified this quarter to be a level 3 bank certified coach and trainer. And we're going to start talking even more in depth about crack your code, reframe your life. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Ooh, I just lost my picture. Hold on. Where did StreamYard go? There it is. Sorry about that, folks. Malcolm said, for me to be here on time, I would have to stop taking phone calls earlier. Today, I arrived at 2:15 or 3:15 your time. The time is in my calendar. Okay, great. Are you willing? to stop taking phone calls? Are you willing? Because I'd love to have you here. Time for us to go, folks. You know I love you. Go out and make somebody smile. Take ownership. Because only when we own that we're choosing can we then make a different choice. And if you're ready to step up in your life and your business and you're looking for a good coach, let's have a conversation and see if we're a good fit. Blessings. Go in peace.
Thank you for listening to the Intuitive Entrepreneur Show, brought to you by Life Coaching Today magazine, empowering your health, your business, your community, your life. Check out the latest issue today at lifecoachingtoday.com. Everyone here at the True Awesome Network asks you to please subscribe, like, comment, and spread awesome.